It's very, very dangerous.
Get these spidey sense, I was like, oh, something's off.
I'm just like, man, I'm waiting to hear something,
Get that crowd warmed up. Is Mr. Jehovah Tiger.
Man, so I had already. So this is all going to go pretty fast. So, like, we go down to Texas to a conference. Okay. Now, by the time we had done that, I had already kind of figured out that, like, these things are legit. I had gone on a previous outing where I had my first sighting through the night vision. And this is going back to Texas not too long after that to go to a Bigfoot conference in Jefferson. My friend goes with me, my best friend. He's Cherokee. I went to high school with him, and he's like, I want to go with you and check this out because, man, you're meeting up with strangers. You're going out and looking for something that doesn't exist. Like, he was worried about me. He was actually concerned about my safety. So he wanted to go meet the people, see what was going on exactly. And in his mind, he was going to go down there, debunk everything, figure it all out, and convince me to quit doing it. And so he goes to this conference with me. Well, in true Bigfoot outlaw fashion, we're going to the conference, but we're going to look for Bigfoot while we're down here. And there's some areas outside of the conference, like we didn't stay in a hotel. We camped out the whole time. And actually, on the way to the campgrounds, he and I driving in from Oklahoma, we go across this big, long dam. And I see there's like a spillway coming out from the dam. And there's like a parking lot. And there's a service road that leads to it from the highway that we're on. But then I see there's a dirt road and a gate that's open. And like a sign posted there. And I was like, man, we need to come back and go down that road later and check it out. So we go to camp and everything, meet up with everybody. Later on, I'm telling, a few of the people, hey, we saw this road. It's right down the road from here. We should check it out. So we go and check it out. And it's actually an access to a public hunting area. And we go down this road and it curves back off in there. And I swear, man, there's just stuff that people consider Bigfoot sign, like X formations, tree bows, things like that. I don't know if Bigfoot makes those things or not. I'm just saying they're oftentimes associated with Bigfoot one way or another. So we saw that stuff and we got off in there and we were like, yeah, this looks like a good spot. We're going to come back here tonight. So later that night, we're in 2 different vehicles. Eventually that road leads, it kind of winds down and ends up going parallel with the little creek that, comes from the spillway and everything. It's a thick pine forest and hardwoods. And there's a spot at the end where there's kind of like a dead end at a gate. And then the road curves off to the right and goes down about another 1/4 mile and dead ends down there. So I pull in the first dead end and the other vehicle goes down to the second one. And at that first dead end spot where that gate is, there's like 2 huge trees. I don't know. They looked pushed over to me. They were like fallen across the gate. Huge full grown trees.
God.
And it like one falling towards the other one, like almost like creating an X, but they're full grown trees. And I was like, that's weird. So we stop, we get out. And as soon as we close the doors to the car, instantly, we hear something running around just maybe 15 yards from the car inside the tree line. Well, we always had this rule that like, whenever you get there, you close the doors. That's going to alert everything in the area. You just drove in. So you got to give it time to settle down. So like the fact that we just closed the doors and we're out of the vehicle and we instantly hear this, that was kind of weird. So we've got spotlights and flashlights and stuff, but we don't get those out. We just kind of stand there and take it all in. And we can hear something moving around out there. Can't see anything because it's too dark. Well, I walk off in kind of an area to get away from everybody. And there's actually me, my friend, and two other people, Bear and this guy named Sammy. Bear and Sammy go kind of down the road. My friend Rod stays by the car. I kind of go across the road the other direction. Well, Rod was kind of spooked, so he had a spotlight with him. And he keeps on popping it on and off because we told him, you know, like, hey, don't leave the spotlight on. Like, this isn't going to help us. Just, you know, if you hear something, turn it on, but try to keep it off. And he just keeps on popping it on and off. So I was like, okay, well, obviously, you know, this area is pretty much ruined at this point. I'm just thinking the sound that we heard was a deer or something. I don't know. Well, all of a sudden he's got the spotlight on and he's by himself and he's saying, I see eye shine. I see eye shine. Okay, well, he's not accustomed to the woods or anything. He's from the city. It's probably, you know, who knows what it is. You're going to see eye shine. Well, his voice keeps on intensifying and he keeps, you know, you can kind of hear it building and he's kind of panicking a little bit. So we start all converging towards him. Well, by the time I get to the vehicle, Bear and Sammy are already closer to him on the opposite side of the vehicle. And man, he just screams and like throws the spotlight and takes off running around my vehicle. He shoulder bumps Bear out of the way, and Rod's not a big guy and Bear's a big guy. He was freaking out, man, freaking out, and climbs into my car, into the driver's seat, climbs over the seat and gets down in the rear seat of my vehicle and is like locking the doors and stuff and freaking out. And I'm just like, what is going on? So we get like some spotlights out of the vehicle. He's still freaking out. We're shining the lights around in the woods. And I can tell you what I saw. I don't know what they saw, but I saw what looked like something about 8 to 9 feet tall. I could see the upper arm area and part of the lower arm. I couldn't see any hands or anything. I could see like the rib cage and stuff and the hip as it was like running through the trees. I'm like spotlighting into the woods and there's like, you know, overgrowth and everything next to the tree line. And then you've got the pine trees and it kind of goes down into this little river bottom area. So like this thing's just like running between the trees. It's reddish brown in color. It's honestly the same color as dead pine needles. That's exactly what it is. That's the exact color it looked like, which was crazy because the whole area was just covered in dead pine needles on the forest floor. Well, we're kind of freaked out now because here's this thing, you know, and it's not acting right. It's not leaving the area. It's running around, but it ain't leaving, which is not normal behavior. At one point, it kind of, you could hear it like running parallel with the road. And I was like, okay, is it going to try to cross the road down away from us and circle around on the other side of us? So I like shined the spotlight down the road and hit like eye shine down there that I'm assuming was it at the edge of the road, and it ducked back in, and then you could hear it running back towards us. Well, whenever it did that, it got pretty much dead even with us and just froze, went quiet. Couldn't hear it running no more. So we're like, okay, we need to regroup, you know, get in the car. So we're all piling back in the vehicle. As I get in, I go to turn the vehicle on. Well, whenever I turn the vehicle on, it locks the doors automatically. So Bear and Sammy can't get in the vehicle. So they're just like hammering on the door handle. They're like, unlock the doors, like freaking out. Cause this thing is, I mean, at this point, you know, 10 feet away from.
Kind of sounds like it's pacing y'all.
Yeah. Yeah. It was crazy. So we get back inside and we've got like a little 2-way radio and we radio the other vehicle and we're like, hey, get over here now, like right now. So we hear them like start up the vehicle and everything, and they're coming. We waited for them to get there. And then we had, numbers more in our favor, and we got back out. And that night was one of the wildest nights of my life, man. Those things came in. That one waited there until the rest of the group came, and they came in there and they surrounded us. And that stuff didn't die out until, man, probably 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning before it finally quieted down. They were running around, whistling, multiple sightings. It was crazy. Eventually, so whenever we got in the car, just to back up a little bit, I told everybody, don't say what you saw. Okay. Whenever the other group gets here, we're going to independently go to somebody and tell them what we saw. And so we did that, and all of our stories matched. Our descriptions of what we saw matched. The same color, same size, everything. My buddy Rod was just out. I mean, he was freaking out. It took probably about an hour and a half. Some ladies that were with us, like, got in the car with him and, calmed him down and talked to him and everything. And eventually, he was able to get back out of the car. But, I mean, he was ready to go, man. He was like, Matt, please take me home. Take me home right now. Please. I don't want to be here. And he ended up getting a tattoo of a Bigfoot on him because of the experience and everything. Like, changed his life forever. But I mean, like, he was freaked out, man. Yeah,
and that's.
I don't blame him. And eventually, he was able to talk about what he saw. It took him a while, but so whenever he said he got eye shine, he could see eye shine. He was shining the spotlight, and he saw eye shine next to a tree, and it ducked behind a tree. And one of us had told him, whenever you're looking for eye shine in the woods, shine it down at the ground. Look at ground level. Most people look too high for Bigfoot because Bigfoot will drop down on their stomachs and hide all the time. Most people look right over them and don't even know they're there. Or, the other situation is they'll line up with a tree and you'll walk right by them or something. So he was shining it down at the ground. And so he saw eye shine kind of off the ground. So at first he's thinking it's just like a raccoon or something. He doesn't know what it is. Well, then the eye shine goes up into the air.
Oh, man.
And he shines the spotlight up and it's gone again. And he says, I guess it was behind the tree, because all of a sudden I see this hand and this arm reach around the trunk of the tree, and it leans over and looks at me. And I'm just blasting it in the face with the spotlight.
Oh, man.
And like, whenever this happened, he was within 30 feet of this thing.
Whoa.
Like, he was close, and nobody was near him or anything. That's why he freaked out, because it went from this thing doesn't even exist, these guys are full of it, to, oh my God, there's a monster.
Man.
Yeah. It was pretty intense night. And that same location has yielded results for other people years after that. People, like, basically that night made that spot famous to a certain select few people. And other people have gone back to that location and had success. And then years later, I was talking to a researcher from Texas who had an encounter down in that hunting area whenever he was deer hunting back in the 80s.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, pretty crazy.
Did he see any of the facial features or anything? Like, did he see, like, oh, it had, like, people always talk about the different types of look.
Yeah. He honestly, his description was the only thing that he could equate it to was Chewbacca. He was like, it was covered in hair, man. It looked like Chewbacca. I couldn't really tell. He was like, because whenever you like shine a spotlight out, like if you point up spotlight at a tree, and we're talking like million candle power spotlight, it like bleaches it out in the light. So like that was going on. He could see the eye shine, and the face was just kind of like bleached out with the light. And he's freaking out and just throwing the spotlight and running. He's not like standing there trying to study it or anything, but he was just like, man, it reminded me of Chewbacca. It was just huge and covered in hair.
What's going on, guys? And I have an important announcement, as you guys have seen on Facebook. The War Cry Podcast now has a merch store through Redbubble. What you'll do is you'll hit that link below, select the logo that you like. You know, we got a wolf logo, we got that Bigfoot scratch or the Dogman scratch logo. Once you select the logo, you'll go down, hit your styles. If you want a T-shirt, if you want a sweatshirt, or if you want different things, or a sticker, or whatever, you'll select the color of that, and then your size, and then you hit that checkout button. And hitting that checkout button and getting that T-shirt supports the podcast. And I appreciate everyone that listens, and it's amazing, and I do truly appreciate it.
My dad's best friend, who was driving. If you guys know, when you're driving into Tahlequah, there's the casino now, but before it used to be pasture. And on the other side was like a golf course. And there was one road that split up that pasture where the casino is now, and with the kind of a golf course / hill type. But there was one road that ran up there. I don't know, it may still be there. And he one night was driving, and he thought he saw something on the side of the road. He looked up and he's like, "Man, what is that?" And he ended up passing by it, and he looked in his rear view, and it was hairy, and it was tall. All he could see is about the forearms, and he really couldn't see much, but he saw it was hairy, real hairy. And he looked, but like he forgot about it for a long time. And I had mentioned it kind of briefly to my dad, and then I had my dad mentioned it to him, and I mentioned it to him, and I said, "Man, you remember that story you told a long time ago?" He goes, "Man, I can't, man." And then one day it just dawned on him. He's like, "Yeah, I remember." But that's the one that they talk about. It makes you forget. And I think that's what he saw that night. And, there's different spiritual aspects of Sasquatch and Bigfoot. And I think he does things, that we can't explain. And, I know Cherokees, we call it secret tribe, of people. And I fully believe that they know things beyond what we, can interpret. And, it's not everyone, like not every Indian's a medicine man, and not every medicine man is an Indian. And not every Bigfoot knows these things. I think it's the same way, I think that's how it is. Is there's only a certain few of them that know, and it's passed down, and they're like our elders, or the people that practice those things and heal people, and they do those things for them. And I think that's the same way with them. I look at them as a set of, almost like a set of people. And I know people go out there all the time, and they're like, "Man, we got to kill them. We got to get a body. We got to make sure these things are real." At the same time, we look at it from a point of view of, as a human being, or something as, it's more than an animal. And I know that there's a lot of people in the Bigfoot community that believe it is an animal. People always talk about cloaking. And when you talk about cloaking, a lot of people think of Harry Potter. They think of that robe, that they put over, and he's just, invisible cloak, or, things like that. But I think of it more of like the Predator, in a sense of, and it's not a technology. It's a technique. I would say it's a medicine, but that's not the phrase I want to use. But they know, and they know how to make themselves disappear. There's an old story about Chito Harjo, who's part of the snakes back in Eufaula days, back in the old days, and he could, when he was getting away from those soldiers and the prohibition police and all them, he'd disappear, and people would never be able to find him. But he'd be right there, just right there, or he'd turn into a stump. And I think that's what they can do too. I think that they do those things to avoid us. And if you want to be found, you can be found. If you don't want to be found, you won't be found. And that's one thing that I was always taught. If you're looking for things, you're going to find it. Or if you want to stay away from those things, they won't come near you. And so there's always things that about that medicine part for Sasquatch, for Bigfoot, that I am very intrigued by. And I love it when I hear stories about Bigfoot kind of rocking with the drums at the grounds, or at the powwow, or stomp grounds. He's vibing out, like he's kind of swaying back and forth. And there was a story told, at a live event that we did for Spirit Talkers back a year ago now, and he was staying on a reservation up north, and this guy, I'm not going to use his name because I ain't got his permission to say his name, but he had looked over, and the drum's going real strong. And he looked over and he could see that there was a Bigfoot, Sasquatch, kind of rocking out, kind of just swaying, like he was, kind of enjoying that, that beat, and kind of just walked away once it was over. And I always find that very interesting. Maybe because sometimes that drum has a healing effect. It really brings your spirit right, makes it right, and it makes you feel good about yourself, and it makes you, I know I felt it when we was at Pouring Power. I was like, man, start doing those dances now. But I think that it affects them. You know, there's been multiple stories that I've heard. This is one out of Concho, and they saw one out there doing the same thing, kind of swaying with the beat, the drums, and
Yeah, so we've had, I don't know, I think we've had them for a while, but we didn't, well, with me, I shouldn't say well, I didn't know about Sasquatch. Like, I never grew up learning about that, that spiritual native side. Um, like I've seen Harry and Henderson's, all those Sasquatch movies. I knew what it was, but I didn't know how close it was to our culture and history, right? But um, yeah, so it was a pretty bad situation in like our res, drugs, alcohol, all that kind of stuff. So the first real, not real, but the first time I really got into it was the people, they'd seen it. They seen it walking on the road, walking through, the backyard of somebody's house. And there was just like on the other side of the woods from my house. Um, and I actually recorded something, and I put it on an episode. I think I put it on the Saba one. So Saba, that's what we call Bigfoot in Ojibwe. Um, yeah, so they've seen it. Um, and one of my friends has an interesting theory that they follow apple trees. And
mm,
so yeah, there's one story too. Okay, I'll keep going anyways. So around here, me and my brother were outside and we could hear tree knocks. And there was one like fairly close to us. We live near the lake. And there was a knock to our left and then a knock up the road to our right. And you could hear them howling. I got something howling on tape or on the recorder. Didn't get the tree knocks because I should always take my phone outside because that's when, stuff happens. And so we heard the tree knocks, we've heard the growling. One of my cousins she had, you could smell, the musty smell they say they have, skunky smell. You could smell that outside of her window. And she went out and there's like her garden. She had a garden and apples. And those were, kind of smushed and there was some eaten, taken. Like the garden was just a write off, she said. And she could hear it walking around outside her house. There was another old gentleman. It was told to me that he had seen a nesting. You know how gorillas nest? They
mm-hmm.
flatten down a bed of, grass or whatever. Yeah, and they said there was hair there, and I was like, okay, well, where the heck is the hair? Like, I want to get me some of that. Yeah, but we didn't get that. And I don't know if it ever got tested or anything. I should talk to um him, but I don't know if he'd be comfortable. Like it's kind of a thing you have to delicately, because maybe they don't know or they don't, want to know what it was. So, and then so me and my friend, we were at her house, and this is the same one that I came from with that thing that walked me home. So that's the same house. We went across the road, and we have like a community center and a big field at the back. So we were gonna look at, there was a meteor shower, I believe, that night. So we're sitting on these big rocks and we heard this snapping and um like it was huge and like it was in the woods and I was like, what is that? And we thought it was a bear and then it made a grunting, like a grunting noise. Kind of like, I don't know if it was like a monkey noise. Oh, so we got up out of there and like we were walking and it snapped and it started walking quite fast through the woods. So we ran and we ran into the house. So yeah, there's stuff like that. She has apple trees down her way, and I just seen, I think it was last summer. We have an apple tree actually in our front yard. Um, so I'm not sure about that, but it makes sense. I mean, they're following food. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't. Yeah, I've heard they come from portals, but I don't know. I've never seen one physically. I've wanted to, but I don't know that I probably regret wanting to. Yeah, there's a lot of stories out here, and there's a lot of in Canada. There's a huge amount. Like if you catch it on video, you kind of know which ones are the hoaxes, kind of thing. You can see it, but I don't know. That's interesting because like we have the seven grandfather teachings, and he is um honesty, I believe. So he represents, or he or she, or they represent like one of the seven grandfather teachings. So I think it comes around when it needs to check up on us, wake us up a little bit. So I don't know. There's so many theories on it, but what you know I just believe I don't believe it's anything. It's scary, obviously. Like you don't want to, don't want to mess with it. But I think they know. I don't know. I think we're closely related to it more than we think
Mm-hmm.
as, as Native people too, right? So.
But anyway, he was 15 years old at the time in the summer of 2005. I had a 1971 International Travelette 4-door, 3/4 ton truck with a load of sand in the back. We were doing some work in our backyard, and I wanted that sand unloaded into the yard. And I told my son, I don't care when you do this, as long as you get it done. And in the summertime, and of course, video games were the rage, of course, then too, like they are now. And he spent his nights playing video games, and he slept all day. That's what teenagers do. And he decided one in the middle of the week, I think it was a Tuesday or a Wednesday night, he decided he was going to go outside and unload that truckload of sand under the security light. I mean, there was a light behind the house, and he could see what he was doing. And he was unloading the sand at I think 2:30, 3 a.m. in the morning. And he went inside the house to get a drink of water. And when he come back out and he went to grab his shovel, he noticed that there was someone standing behind one of our bird feeders.
Mm.
And the bird feeder was one of those. It was 6 feet high on a pole, and it had a Japanese motif to it. You know what I'm saying? The way it was built, like a
Mm-hmm.
box, but it had like a Japanese roof on it, and the birds could go inside that box and eat seed.
Mm.
And it was about 6 feet high. And he noticed that this thing's head was about a foot above the top of that box on that bird feeder. And apparently, in his first gut reaction, he didn't really notice that size. And of course, I'm telling you some things after the fact, but he thought it might have been one of his friends from down the road. And he took the shovel, kept the shovel in his hand, and started walking toward this thing behind the bird feeder. And that was probably no more than 20 feet away from where the truck was sitting. And when my son went toward the truck, or toward this thing, it turned and ran under the security light and around the side of the house and down the hill and away off into the woods. But he didn't get a good look at it until it went under the security light, and that's when he noticed it had long black flowing hair, and he said it was thin. He said he could see the muscles rippling on its body as it was moving, and he said it didn't run, it just kind of jogged away. It wasn't running very fast at all. And he was able to see that its skin was a grayish color under the black long hair.
Mm.
And he described the hair as being very shiny and very clean, and like it had been groomed. He said it was pretty. He said I've heard stories of Bigfoot sightings where they're all matted and they're covered with mud, or they've got um, leaves or something in their hair and it's all matted. But this thing, he said, was very clean and very, very well groomed. So You'd have to understand the way our property was. There was a dog lot, a large fenced-in dog lot on the right side of our house, and he was behind the house in the backyard, and the truck was behind the house in the corner where that dog lot was. Turns to walk toward this thing, it turns and goes under the security light, and it goes around the dog lot and down toward the road. And he follows it, of all things. I don't understand his mentality at the time, and I still don't to this day, but he follows it. He's walking, not chasing it, but walking down the front of the house as this thing is running at a slow pace. And it leaves the yard into the road and travels, I think we measured it 45 feet from the edge of our yard to a neighbor's adjacent driveway, which was roughly 45 feet away. And he distinctly remembers its feet hitting the ground, hitting the pavement 4 times, 4 or 5. So either way, either in 4 big steps or 5 big steps, it moved 45 feet, which is what, roughly a 9-foot gate.